You're listening to Life, Death, and the Law, presented by Deason, Garner, and Hansen, the law firm that has been voted Yuma's best 6 years in a row.
So what do you guys think about that use of force when raiding Mar-A-Lago to get supposed classified documents? What do you think about that, Tom?
Well, I don't like the idea of a political opponent or a sitting president using a DOJ arm to investigate a political opponent, which seems like as the more information's coming out, it seems like it was more and more unnecessary and more that they had to bring either falsify evidence or makes things seem worse than they actually were in reality to even get the initial case to stick. Using lethal force doesn't shock my conscience. Like the FBI is always carrying weapons. So the fact that they were authorized to use lethal force, they're always authorized to use lethal force if the threat arises. So it just seems to me like I'm not really, biting on that buzz line as much, though.
I'm more familiar with that lethal force use in the ATF context. Obviously, when they do these, middle of the morning, we're talking 3 o'clock in the morning, no-knock warrants into your house to find supposed illegal weapons or caches of ammo or something that you're not allowed or for some reason you're not supposed to be using. The ATF is known to do that, and oftentimes that results in death on behalf of the ATF and that person that they're raiding, because obviously when you get awoken at 3 o'clock in the morning and people come in with guns yelling and screaming and shocking you out of bed, you're going to react, right? I mean, that's the point. But they're on their side of things, on the government side of things, they want as much peacefulness as possible. So their idea is, and they don't want the destruction of evidence. I think that's what the argument is on the government side. So them going into Mar-A-Lago armed and dangerous, ready to shoot to kill, and having a medic on site, like you said, is pretty much par for the course for an administrative agency like this and an executive branch agency, because when there is a likelihood that evidence can be destroyed, they would need to get in there, secure that evidence before it can be destroyed, even using deadly force sometimes. I don't quite go to the idea that, okay, we need deadly force in this scenario because there was no threat. A paper can't kill you. Mm-hmm. A piece of paper can't kill you. A gun can. So in the ATF situation where they use that as an excuse, I kind of get it, because they're supposedly coming into an environment where this person has allegedly arms that they could use in retaliation against you as a person invading your home. And so that usually gets the judge to sign off on that no-knock warrant. When it comes to documents, I don't know. I mean, what are you going to do? Throw some paper?
Yeah. I don't think it's so much for me like the actual evidence is not deadly, but people can always be deadly. So if the reasoning is I'm going into somebody's home where they do not want me to be, the chances are somebody could be deadly, not necessarily something. But I think the part that bothers me more is the unmarked uniforms and the not as much transparency. It makes it look like a secret op, which I think is something that it makes the whole situation look even worse than it is.
Well, number one, though, so in that context, you're saying, someone could be dangerous. We know who could have been there. It's either Trump himself, who's pushing 80, mm-hmm. not really much of a threat, I wouldn't think, physically, to an agent. Number two, Melania, a dainty woman. I'm not to say that she couldn't hold her own, but at the same time, it's like not really what I would consider a threat to FBI agents. And finally, Barron, if Barron was home. President Trump has assigned, for the rest of his life, security detail. Mm-hmm. He has Secret Service. So how does that play into everything? You have the FBI coming in. They obviously knew he wasn't going to be there. I mean, they would have to really coordinate this, I would think, because he travels with, and he has around him all the time, armed guards for the rest of his life. So how do you work that in? And even if he goes to prison, how does that work? And we've talked about that, I think, before, Shawn, you'd mentioned, well, if he goes to prison in one of these criminal actions, do you forfeit that security detail? I mean, he has a right to it for the rest of his life, or do they just hang out with him in the cell?
Well, Right. Those are all really interesting questions, and we're in uncharted waters at this point because we've never seen this type of thing happen before. So, Thomas, to your point, I'm actually really surprised at how casual you're taking all of this, because Adam,
You're the worst, Tom.
well,
I'm used to it.
Adam's
That's
pointing
what
out
he's
the
saying.
obvious, right? It's like, how dangerous did they expect this to be? It's not as if they've never been there. It's not as if they don't know what the landscape looks like or the people who they're going to be. The people that they are going to actually be interacting with, we trusted to lead the country just 6 months earlier. So
And they most likely know each other. Like these people, it's the
probably
swamp.
trained. Yes, these people. Well, the FBI, the Secret Service, when they get to these elite levels, oftentimes they know each other because of the training that they've gone through to get to these levels of position that they're in, and so they know who they are and what an escalation of events looks like, and they've been to Trump's house 3-4 times prior to this happening. They've negotiated with Trump. They've gotten many boxes from him. I think it was something like 15 boxes prior to this raid they had already gotten from Trump, just asking for them. And then they told him the other boxes he needed to put in a more secure location, which he did. He put under lock and key. And then they went on and said, okay, we want them. I think he had some, I don't know the specifics as to why he didn't turn them over beforehand, but he didn't. And they served the search warrant on him. But doing it in the night and doing it with, guns as if they're going to go into like some drug cartel and it's going to be an all-out firefight, that was weird. That was really weird. And everybody saw that was weird and complained about it at the time. And now we're getting more into the warrant. Why would you specifically authorize the use of lethal force when there's no situation that I can imagine that there is going to end up in a battle between the Secret Service and the FBI, let alone the Trump family and the FBI? I can't imagine any scenario that it happened. And if it had happened or had a possibility of happening, you are looking at some major backlash from the population, from the people. And would that be justifiable? I mean, they talk about a civil war, and we're getting so divided among each other with the party's division getting deeper and deeper now more than ever before. If you want to create a civil war, go kill the president that was one of the most popular presidents in recent history in a search warrant for some papers that they've yet to demonstrate have any value whatsoever to national security. That's a good way to start a civil war.
Sure. If they would have gotten shot at, would you expect them to return fire?
Yeah.
If they would have been shot at, if you really want to be a peaceful, law-abiding government, the president in this case and the attorney general, the instruction should be, listen, if they shoot at you, pull back, get out of there. It's not worth it at this point. He's had the papers already for a year and a half. If the information is going to be disclosed, it's gone.
Yeah, I don't know if that's realistic though. Like in a scenario where somebody shoots at you, you don't have time to just pull back. Like I know this is like maybe a little bit of a military like take, but like you're taught from like, I'm sure a lot of Secret Service and FBI have military training. The best medicine in the battlefield is overwhelming suppressing fire, and that's what we were always taught.
Because you have to achieve an objective that oftentimes is the case with military, you're in hostile territory. Right,
Sure.
that you've got it warrants you going in there with guns in the first place and getting at that objective, whether it's obtaining some territory or liberating some people or whatever that might be. But in this case, we're talking about paper that's been in the president's possession for a year and a half.
Right.
What is justifying the FBI firing back at the Secret Service?
Well, no, I think we're talking about two different scenarios here. I think what I hear you to say is your argument is they shouldn't be there in the first place.
No, I think they could have been there with a warrant. I don't know that they needed to be there in the middle of the night.
Sure, I can agree with that.
At no point do I see they need to go in there and say, hey, if anybody starts shooting, it's going to be all out war. We're getting those boxes no matter what.
Yeah, I don't think that it needs to be we're getting the boxes no matter what. But if you're there executing a warrant and someone does start shooting you, it doesn't shock my conscience that a judge says you can use lethal force if you have to.
Well, why would the judge even have to say that in the first place?
I don't know.
Isn't that already presumed?
Yeah.
If somebody shoots at you, the fact that the FBI had guns, I think, is automatically assumed by everybody. The FBI doesn't go anywhere without guns.
Yeah, that's just why I think it's redundant in the search warrant that they even say that.
Well, I think, and that is the part that shocks the conscience, is that they specifically went out to put that in there because they're imagining some scenario where maybe we just eliminate a political opponent.
Sure.
If you have questions or want to know more about something that was discussed today, please call the law firm of Deason, Garner & Hansen at 928-783-4575 or visit yumaestateplanning.com.